Well, every Friday as we wrap up our week, our friends at Local Environmental Services give us an opportunity to blow off a little bit of steam. I mean, waste and recycling management is what they do, which means that this feature, of course, a perfect fit. These are all real emails that we've received this week to talk at ryanjesperson.com, a little something we call Trash Talk. All right, this one from Cheryl yesterday who says, Jesperson, I loved your show. I am a lefty, and I'm totally offended by your use of this term in what can only be described as a derogatory manner. Yesterday, that's Wednesday, she says, I had to listen to Brian Jean's sale pitch, and now this? Way to be inclusive, Ryan. Not! That from Cheryl. Point taken. Blake says, Ryan, the show might be called Real Talk, but the first definition of talk in my dictionary is to express or exchange ideas by means of spoken words. Speak these words. Sarah, I'm sorry I steamrolled you, says Blake. Then close your mouth and open your ears. You might get some ideas exchanged by means of spoken words that day. Blake, I hope you caught the first 20 minutes of today's show. Appreciate you holding my feet to the fire. What about this one from Marla, who says, I have to respond because the left infighting on Twitter is at a fever pitch. I myself am a left-leaning white woman in Alberta. I have Twitter, although my therapist has advised me to delete it for my mental health. I've had a run-in with certain left-wingers on Twitter. In fact, I've most of them muted or blocked, but the left eating itself is wild to watch. I'm at the point where I'm scared to tweet anything because I'm so worried about being piled on. Why are we infighting so much? We have a common enemy, says Marla. Are we allowed as people who are unlearning to make mistakes and grow and change? I feel like the only acceptable option for many on the Twitter left is perfection. Marla says, I had to do a massive amount of unlearning from my white evangelical Christian upbringing. I don't always get it right. I have to think things out. I even delete some of my tweets. I wish we'd spend less time policing each other and dogpiling each other. People that are trying their best. Maybe they're not so far down that unlearning path as you think. If we approach people with kindness and compassion, people may not become instantly reactive. So let's move forward with compassion and kindness. Let's be open to listening and learning. Let's work toward reconciliation and inclusion together. That from Marla. What about this one from Dr. Martin, who says, the cuts announced to our health professionals is a sick joke. These folks doing their amazing work allow me to do my job as a rural doctor, especially in acute care and ERs. Think of them as vital organs that allow doctors and nurses to work. This is BS. Pharmacy techs, an 11% cut. Social workers, an 11% cut. Speech-language pathologists, a 9% cut. Respiratory therapists, literally the people that kept others breathing through our not yet finished pandemic, the government's choice of gratitude, an 8% cut and a big screw you. Physical conditions, mental health, gaps, and social determinants of health, poverty, homelessness are all issues that Albertans face. If they're not properly addressed, they all end up in the same place, the emergency room. The doc says these cuts have a goal of saving money. The problem is they'll lead to higher costs when we put more strain on our ERs. That from Dr. Martin. What about this one from Cameron, who says, your guest, Dr. Andy Knight from Yale, validated my feelings about humanity. This war against Ukraine has really impacted me. It makes me feel fortunate to feel, grateful for where I live. We don't have a fear of war coming here. We can protest without being arrested. What has me so concerned is about this new world order that Dr. Knight said is coming. How world leaders are just full of shit and hypocrisy. World War II, the world saw what appeasing a narcissist does. The world has appeased Putin for 2 decades. And the reporting from Ukraine has taught me that Putin has pulled the same tactic in Chechnya, Syria, and now Ukraine. And the world just now seems to care. How disappointing, says Cameron. I wouldn't be surprised if similar things happen in Afghanistan and Iraq. But the Western world has an opportunity and an obligation to finally do what's right, to show the world we actually give a shit beyond ourselves. That from Cameron. What about this one from Al, who says, Ryan, why do you continue to insist on truckers defaming the war memorial in Ottawa? Truckers unmasking the Confederate flag. What about the Nazi flag bearers? Apparently an anti-Nazi questioner. Ryan, do you support LGBTQ advocates putting rainbow flags on the Terry Fox statue, or is that different? He says, you have already felt the cancel culture swipe. You can afford to be a little more objective. I am disheartened by your narrative. I am a disillusioned watcher. That from Al. Appreciate you chiming in, Al. And this one from Tamara, who says, Ryan, thank you so much for having Megan from Calgary on your show regarding those demonstrations in the Beltline. These ongoing hate-filled marches have been held every Saturday for nearly a year. These permitless protests have continued to disrupt the peace and harass residents, including me, of the Beltline. We have a right to live peacefully. It's been vetoed for months, and they're receiving support from Calgary Police. The ongoing enabling and facilitation by the CPS on these permitless protests, literally escorting them and clearing roadways every single weekend, validates the harassment incurred, and it costs taxpayers millions in the process. That from Tamara. You can send us your trash talks anytime, 7 days a week, to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's presented proudly by Local Waste. Coming up on Monday's show, we're going to host a roundtable on NFTs. How much do you know about them? There's a relatively local story, a very cool one about an investment in art that's actually benefiting the public. That'll be our jumping off point. In the meantime, have an amazing weekend, friends. Thanks for showing up for the Real Talk, and we'll see you soon.